What's going on, guys? So in this video, we have Mr. Ross Vandy here comparing the Xbox ROG Allies to the Switch 2. This is not to beat down anything that I'm not doing in this video. This is to give more perspectives on content. I want to know what this guy thinks and feels about this. I don't know what he said. I haven't watched this. I only seen a little bit of the intro and then I rewinded it back. What I can say though is that I am interested to see people's opinions about how they feel subjectively. This is not about me saying anything else. This is about what he's saying, and we're going to react to this. So let me know what you guys think. I've made the other videos enough. Now let's see what's going on other perspectives of this. It's going to be a whole saga. There's a lot to this. There's a lot of comparisons to do, as we all know. So let's go.
Is the new Xbox handheld better than the Nintendo Switch 2? Because yeah, I got the Xbox handheld.
Here's my thing with that. I don't really even think that's the way I would look at it. I would just see, how do I feel about this versus how I feel about that? Because I don't think, and it's weird, he said something, we're gonna get to this in a second, because this is the type of stuff that can start things on the internet, and you guys will see what I mean. Wait a second.
It's kind of insane, and honestly, I'm impressed. Will this finally be the console-like handheld that competes with the Switch 2, like Xbox says it will? We're gonna
Guys, when did Microsoft say that this was going to compete with the Switch 2? See, those are console wars. Because let me tell you what I just typed on over here. Did Microsoft say the Xbox ROG Ally will compete with Switch 2? Microsoft never said that. Like, that type of stuff to me, I don't really like. No, I understand what he's saying. He maybe wants that, but it's like, dude, come on, man. Don't put words in their mouth because they didn't say that. And you guys know how things can go when it comes to that. They can start a whole fire on the internet. Microsoft said it was going to, what? They said that? And you guys know how this stuff works. We just had some stuff about that not too long ago. Come on, guys. Don't be doing that type of stuff, man, because it's like, we can enjoy this stuff. You can enjoy your ROG Ally. You can still enjoy your Switch. So you can have both, right? I have no problem with that at all. You guys know what I was about. I was about that name stuff and the price. I didn't agree with the price, but I think the device is a cool device. But this right here, it says it. No, Microsoft has not officially said that the Xbox ROG Ally will directly compete with the Switch 2. Why would they say that? It's not going on the market as a console like that to sell, like, you know, 100 million. Come on, man, that's insane. They would even get 10 million off of the whatchamacallit. So I don't think that's Microsoft's plan. I would say Microsoft's plan is trying to get their PC game better, to compete more with Steam and platforms and all that other stuff. Because they just are leaving out of that. So try to do that is just like opening up Pandora's box in the wrong way, and you know what I mean. So yeah, they position it as a premium Windows-based PC handheld, targeting a different audience. And it's not going to sell like that. So I just had to get that out the way so people don't go a mile with that, because I know how things are. Just saying, man. All right, let's go.
to find out by testing and comparing everything. The hardware, the games, and even the price. Oh my goodness, the price. It's insane. And what better way to start than opening it? Asus and Xbox were so kind and they were like, hey, we gotta let you try this out. This is a girthy box for a handheld. I love ripping plastic. Now, there's also two versions of this. We got the ROG Xbox Ally X, but there's also just the non-X version, just the ROG Xbox Ally. And that is a cheaper model. This is the first ROG Ally I've ever tested. I have a Steam Deck. I obviously have a Nintendo Switch, and I've tested the Lenovo Legion Go, but this is the first for gaming PCs. And usually I'm not like a super big gaming PC guy, but when Xbox put their hand into the ring, I'm like, I gotta test this out. Regardless, let's open it up. Okay, so it comes with a stand, just a styrofoam stand. Thank you. Comes with, yes, of course, the power supply. I actually don't know what else it would even come with. What a prank. Wow. As this suggests, we should probably plug it in and power it on.
Trollish,
a nice long cable for a handheld console. I appreciate that. We got two USB-Cs on the top. Looks like you have a micro SD slot, a microphone / headphone slot, the power button, which apparently has a fingerprint sensor. You got the power, you got the volume up and down, you got the A, B, X, Y. Now on the Ally X, these are all blacked out. It's also kind of crazy. So this D-pad, Xbox D-pads are one of the most clicky buttons I've ever touched on a controller. If I click a D-pad on a regular Xbox controller, you can hear it from like across the street. It's loud, louder than any other console, but here, they're a little more squishy. That's my first take. The analog sticks feel pretty similar, and the buttons feel similar as well. There's also back buttons on it. They're very small back buttons. My fingers can barely click these things. These are not made for baby hands like me. What can I say? And now we press the power button. Oh.
have big hands like
Oh
me.
yeah. Whoa, look at these sticks. They're
big
glowing.
hands.
Just what I needed. This is what I asked for. So I'm gonna take some time, make sure everything's updated, and I'm gonna download some games. We're gonna see how that goes. All right, future me, you can do the voiceover now. Go ahead. I'm waiting. No, seriously. At this point, I've played this console for several days straight, and honestly, I wasn't sure if I'd like it as much as I do. First, let's talk about the overall design of the Xbox ROG Ally. This thing is beefy, like way bigger than I expected from the pictures, and actually very similar to a big, wide Xbox controller. The sticks, the bumpers, the face buttons all feel perfect. Exactly what you'd expect from Xbox. This even has an Xbox button, so I mean, like, that's the most Xbox you can get, except the D-pad. I don't know what it is. I don't love the D-pad.
So he's liking some of that stuff so far, we see.
I feel like I accidentally misinput it, and it's way less clicky than the actual Xbox controller, which are like kind of too clicky, you know what I mean? Still, overall, the build quality of the Xbox ROG Ally X is solid. It feels premium, though I'd say the Switch 2 does as well. Now, the ergonomics. This is where the Xbox handheld shines. Playing games on the ROG Ally just feels so natural. When I played Fortnite, it genuinely felt like I was holding a full-blown controller on the couch. On the Switch 2, competitive...
Now, somebody kissed their PS5, but I'm not going to kiss the Switch 2. But it is funny to act like I almost did. I had to do that. That to me was still funny. I will never delete that picture, guys. I have that as a whatchamacallit. Hey, man, get back in the dock. What are you doing? All right, let's continue.
Games or anything that needs a precise movement just don't feel as good, mainly because the buttons are smaller and there's no grip on the back because it's like thin. The Xbox can just fit in your hands.
Well, that's the thing too, because like they think about the light compatible aspect of a Japanese person too, and it's light and efficient. And if you're going to be on the go a lot, it's not going to be heavy. I think when I think of the ROG Xbox Ally, I think of a more power PC, like, you know, beefy approach. It's not something you want to walk around with, standing up with all day. But if you're sitting next to your desktop and it plugged in and you're charging it, or you're going to put it on something, I think that's better. Like I said, when I was picking up and playing with it at Best Buy, I did like the ergonomics. I like the grip with it, but I don't know. I just didn't feel like it was like really for me. Not that I thought bad of it, but I don't know. I just got that feeling I got when I just looked at my Series X a while ago. I'm like, I don't see the point anymore, honestly. But not that I thought it was bad or anything. But I'm like, no, I don't want to pay $1,000 for this. But it is a cool device and it is comfortable. You know what I mean? But I wouldn't want to hold that all day.
Better. You can buy grips for the Switch 2 that mimics this, but I'm not really counting those here. Now, what about the overall portability of these two consoles? Because that's literally the point of them. As I've said, this Xbox is a unit. It is a chunky boy, which makes it a little more annoying to travel with compared to the Nintendo Switch 2. And yes, both are big consoles, but hands down, the Xbox takes up way more space in your backpack. And I'm using the official carrying case, and it is just so bulky. And yeah, you're definitely not fitting this in your pocket. Look at this. My boys, it just does not work. Maybe I need some bigger pockets. The Switch 2, on the other hand, is still pretty large, but being able to detach the controllers makes it a bit easier to pack. The real difference, though, is weight. Not just while carrying it around, but while playing. Now, I know I'm weak. Don't say it in the comments. Don't. But the Xbox handheld is heavy.
You're all right, man. Don't y'all.
Especially compared to the Switch 2. Listen, I like playing in bed, and yes, you can do that with both, but hands down, the Switch 2 makes that way easier. Now, what about that good old display? Well, this is actually kind of weird. Both the Switch and the ROG Ally are 1080p, can go up to 120 Hertz, and they're both LCD. The biggest difference is that the Switch 2 screen is almost an inch bigger, while the system itself is smaller and lighter overall, which in my opinion is a big deal. If I'm going to
It is, guys. That's the thing that I said, that I wish that they would have gave you a bigger screen. Definitely when you're charging that much more money. Why? You know what I mean? Just think about it. So yeah, that's the only thing that disappoints me on top of, like I said, it not being $800, which I think it should have been $800.
Have a massive device, I think the display should be massive too. And I can't help but notice that the bezels on the Xbox are way bigger than the Switch's. The border around the screen is super noticeable and honestly feels kind of unnecessary, though I'm sure they needed it for some technical reason. Or maybe to put the ROG logo, I don't know. So yeah, these both are really great looking displays, vibrant colors, very sharp for a handheld device, but the Switch 2's display is actually better because it's simply bigger. And because it's bigger, it looks kind of brighter, but it's not actually technically brighter. I just don't know why this powerhouse of a system can't.
Yeah, because we need to talk about nits and stuff. But the thing is that usually when you think about getting a bigger TV or a bigger monitor, it's more expensive, right? So how do you have a bigger screen? You have a lesser screen, but you're $1,000. This is why I feel like they cheaped out on you guys with the screen. And he's right, because with this too, this doesn't even give you that. You're playing it even kind of like, it's kind of edging it off a bit. Like, think about that. This is not being anything. This is just criticizing. Like, you could have not cheaped out. Just like I thought that you guys deserved a 1 terabyte for the regular ROG Ally for it being that price. Why are you giving them that when it's a Series S situation where it's like 3 games and I'm done? Like, come on, man. That means you got to spend $600 plus tax, plus pay probably $100 for that. You got a 700 something range for that. That's crazy. Like, no, man, not for that Ally. I'm talking about the X, the Ally. Think about that. That's nuts. No.
It just be a little bit bigger, or the bezel's at least smaller. But the audio on the Xbox, that's a big difference. You see these? These are so much better than the Switch 2's tiny little speakers. The Xbox ones are bigger, which just means louder. These things are probably twice as loud as the Switches. You're not.
And that should be, because like I said, if I'm paying you that much more money, it better be a more premium experience, at least when it comes to that type of stuff. That actually makes sense.
Getting studio level quality or anything, but they're definitely better and fuller than Nintendo Switch. But moving from just the looks and the feel, we gotta look at the sheer power of these handhelds, because my goodness, that's really where the Xbox ROG Ally X takes the cake. Where did the cake come from, and where did it go? Let's take Fortnite for example, because we all love Fortnite, don't lie. It ran at a smooth 120 frames per second at around 720p on low settings, and at 60 frames per second on high settings. The game looked as good as a current gen console, but it was in the palm of my hand. But the most impressive one in my mind was Horizon Zero Dawn. You know, the game with the big robot dinosaurs. It's open world and above 60 frames per second, reaching 80 to 90 frames per second.
I don't know, man. That looks very blurry with like MS problems. I think he has on frame gen. I don't like frame gen, guys. Like, it just looks like very choppy. A lot of MS issues.
Second at times as well. Their textures, lighting, and foliage looked fantastic. Across the board, you'll find better visuals and much more stable performance than the Switch 2. And now comparing that to the Switch 2.
It looks like he turned that off. You saw he was at 39 frames. That's what I'm saying. I could tell the difference. Look, when he was doing the 60, he had the frame gen on, and it was looking, just did not look good. When he turned it off, and you saw this at 39 frames. Look, I'll rewind it for you and show you. Okay, look at it. That's 60, right, guys?
Just open world and above 60.
Yeah, no, just keep
frames
watching.
Per second, reaching 80 to 90 frames per second at times as well. Their textures.
40 frames per second. What's going on here? There's a difference.
Lighting and foliage looked fantastic. Across the board, you'll find better visuals.
That doesn't look blurry, but it's down to 40. How are we going from 39 to 7? What he says? No. He's turning off frame gen, and then he's showing you the clear stuff there. You guys know what I'm talking about? You know how this works as a PC gamer. So it's just like what's his face was saying. I recommend turning it off if you want to not have all that stuff on your screen, because frame gen right now is not working the best as you would think. Definitely with AMD, because NVIDIA has that stuff down more than them. That's the thing that I'm worried about.
And much more stable performance than the Switch 2. And now comparing that to the Switch 2, let's look at Fortnite again. On the Switch 2, it looks decent, but you can tell that a lot of graphical features have been toned way down to keep that 60 frames per second. Both systems can run at 60 frames per second, but the ROG Ally just looks much richer, more detailed, and holds a steadier frame rate overall and higher. But of course, that makes perfect sense. The Xbox handheld has much stronger specs, a faster chip, and a whopping 24 gigabytes of RAM on the Ally X model, compared to the Nintendo Switch 2's 12 gigabytes of RAM, which apparently only uses 9 gigabytes of RAM when you're actually playing a game. The Switch 2 chip is also a bit weaker, and I'm gonna be real, I'm not gonna pretend like I know all this techie stuff and what the difference is with the upscaling and the resolution boosts and all that stuff. If you want that extreme techie stuff, I'm not your guy. I'm just trying to look at it from a casual player's perspective, because that's my perspective. But this brings me to my next point. Yes, we know that this system is powerful, but is it actually the Xbox handheld people have been waiting for?
There it is again, guys, 39 frames per second.
For me, and a lot of people, one of the best parts about the Nintendo Switch, or even Xbox consoles, is that you can just turn them on and just pick up and play. And that's been my biggest issue with other PC handhelds. They can be finicky and kind of annoying to use, especially since most of them just run Windows, which, let's be honest, isn't exactly built for handheld systems. So, is the Xbox handheld another one of those slightly annoying Windows handhelds, or have they actually made it feel console-like? Well, yes, they have. They actually made this feel console-like, at least more than other handheld PCs. One thing I've always loved about the Steam Deck is its interface. You boot it up and you instantly know where to go. It's simple and it's made for gaming. But other PC handhelds, including the previous ROG Ally, didn't have that. It just dumped you straight into Windows like a normal computer. And then you had to download all the launchers and then boot up the games through all these random different launchers if you wanted all these random different launchers. So it was usable, it was just a process to get there. The new Xbox handheld finally fixes that, and it actually feels Xboxy. They built an all-new home interface for this device that lets you pick between any launcher or game, and then you could just click play. It'll automatically launch the game from whatever service it's tied to. For example, it's not just the Game Pass catalog or
He's talking about the full screen experience.
Steam. If I click Fortnite, it'll launch through the Epic Games Launcher automatically. This makes the overall gaming experience way more seamless, especially when you're juggling different launchers. Now, while this all sounds great, there are still some blatant PC problems. For some reason, even when launching through the Xbox interface, certain games forget that you're on a handheld and just sit there waiting for a keyboard and mouse input. So you're stuck on—
There it is again. This is the 5th video, and I've seen like 10 or 11 of them saying no responses again. So you can't make this stuff up.
On the game's home screen until you open the control center overlay, which I didn't even know until I had to click every button to try and get it to work. And man, the boot times, I tell ya. I don't even know what it is, but some of these games take forever to load. So if you're expecting that instant, snappy pick up and play experience, this just isn't there yet. Because again, it still has to go through all of the other launchers, or Steam, or I don't know, figure out anti-cheat or something. It's not horribly long, just noticeably longer than another console. That said, this does still have some very Xbox-like features, like quick resume. You can jump between games or windows with ease, and closing them is just as fast. And again, there's an Xbox button. So what does that do? It opens a quick menu to switch games or head to the home screen. And if you hold it, it'll actually give you multiple windows and you can choose to close which windows you want and all that stuff. So, I mean, it's pretty good. It's an Xbox button. But the most useful button is the control center button. That opens a menu that lets you adjust everything. Frame rate caps, resolution, power usage, fan speed, all that good stuff.
Yeah, don't mess around with Armory Crate, guys. If you don't know what you're doing, I highly recommend like learning about it. So I'll tell you right now, I have a ROG Ally. Have Armory Crate, knowing how to adjust the fans to get lower speed and all that. If you don't know what you're doing with that fan, you can mess up your device. So I'm just giving you guys a warning. Learn how that works or ask somebody so you can know what you're doing. Don't just go in there messing with that fan, because I'm telling you, you can mess it up. This is your CPU. It needs to be set a certain way. You have to learn how that stuff works. That's why I tell people, don't just think of this as a console. Learn Armory Crate. It's worth it.
You can toggle how much performance or battery you want on the fly. There are a bunch of other options I don't fully understand, but it's there if you want to dive deep. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that this, although it is a little more console-like, it's still a PC. And that means lots of updates. When I first booted it up, it took an entire night just to download all of these. And that might not be your experience, and that could just be because I'm getting an early version of it. But every single handheld PC I've used aside from the Steam Deck is just like that. With most PC handhelds, the updating process is brutal, like 16 different menus deep before you can even play. Now, thankfully, the Xbox handheld is a lot more streamlined. You'll only need to update Windows and the Armory software thing, which you can find in the control center menu. But still, if Asus didn't tell me that directly, I probably wouldn't have even known that it was there to update. And apparently skipping it could potentially affect performance. But going back to the main question, does this actually—
Dude, that's what I mean. That's PC stuff. Like, you have to let people know about that. We're not getting on there, but it's just like, this is why you want to know this, because if you don't know that, then you're not using it to the full potential, whereas the console, it does that automatically for you. And most people are used to that. Definitely, this is their first time getting into this. They need to know these things. You can't just be telling them, it's just going to be that, and then they get it, and then they didn't even know that the whole time, and they could just be missing performance. That's something to really consider.
Feel like a handheld console. If you love tinkering, customizing, and fine-tuning everything, this thing's actually a dream. But for someone like me, who wants to just boot up and play, it can feel kind of slow and a bit annoying to start a simple game. And speaking of annoying, I found that there were consistently glitches happening before I even booted up a game. Just opening it to the lock screen, sometimes it would just freeze or bug out. Most of the time when I go to type in my PIN, the menu just isn't even centered on the screen. It's more of a cosmetic bug than something game-breaking, but it's kind of annoying. Another one that that drove me nuts is the performance overlay. The one that shows your frame rate, battery, and CPU usage. It sits way too low on the screen instead of at the top. So it literally blocks part of the game I'm playing. I ended up just turning it off because of this. I don't know if that's a me problem or if there's some kind of hidden menu that fixes it, but either way, it's annoying. I can't be too harsh on this because I'm also using this before release, but overall, I find that most PC handhelds just bug out way more than they should. That said, out of all the PC handhelds I've used, this is the most console-like one so far. The Xbox overlay integration between multiple launchers is fantastic, and the control center is great, just a little finicky sometimes. And when you compare it to the interface on the Switch 2, yeah, I mean, you already know. I mean, as a console player, the Switch 2 wins hands down. When you need an update, it just updates, and it all happens in one place, a place I can easily find in the menus. Booting up a game is fast and simple. I see it on the home screen, tap it, and I'm playing within seconds. At most, it maybe takes 15 seconds to start a game on the Switch. On the ROG Ally, you actually never know. Could take a couple seconds, could take a couple minutes. So while this is more console-like, it still needs some work to actually feel like one. Now, one thing the Xbox handheld does beat the Switch in is customization. It's still a PC. You can tweak settings, use mods.
That's what I'm saying. You're not going to be able to tweak all those settings and sliders on a PC. I mean, on a console, it's not happening. It's a PC. In that sense, and I get what you mean. So you get that customization. But some people don't want to deal with that. They just want to hit performance or quality and maybe get on. You know what I mean? They're more about like directly getting on with that. But if you're more nerdy, like, hey man, it is nice.
And change just about everything you want. Meanwhile, the Switch has you locked into Nintendo's ecosystem, their launcher, their UI, and yes, still only 2 themes. I like the light theme. That's just me though. Comment down if you like the dark or the white theme, just say it. But at the end of the day, gaming is about the games. So that being said, let's talk about them. Because once again, the ROG Ally has a ton of flexibility in this department. You can literally play anything on this handheld. You've got your Steam library, Xbox Game Pass, cloud streaming, multiple launchers, and even, you know. The Nintendo Switch has a ton of games too, don't get me wrong. Most titles you'd want to play probably have a Nintendo Switch version, but there are some caveats. If a game is on the Switch, it probably is going to cost more because of that, you know, Switch tax. Things just cost more on the Switch. There are lots of deals, but chances of a Switch game being more expensive is higher than on the PC. That's just how it is. And every game is optimized to work specifically.
Yeah, because on PC you can just get stuff on the key market and all that. 100%, no competition.
Specifically on the Nintendo hardware. There's no tweaking graphics settings or changing performance options. You get what you get. And that's even more noticeable now with the Nintendo Switch 2. There are a lot of games that still don't have Switch 2 editions, meaning you're often stuck playing the Switch 1 version with downgraded graphics on the current gen console. Even some new releases are still only built for Switch 1, which is rough when you've got newer hardware that can clearly do better. The fact that I'm playing Patrick Star the game at 30 frames per second when I know the Switch 2 can do 60 frames per second is the worst feeling in the world. Meanwhile, on the Xbox handheld, you can adjust everything. The frame rate, resolution, shadows, whatever you want. The freedom to tweak makes big difference. The con to all that freedom is, well, I'm constantly tweaking things just to get the best experience possible. Half the time, the first 30 minutes to an hour of playing a game isn't even me playing on that ROG Ally. It's me adjusting settings, testing frame rates, and hunting for the most optimized balance. Now, a lot of platforms and games can automatically adjust settings before or after you launch the game to give you that most optimized experience. And even the Xbox launcher has this new optimizer verified on the console, like the Steam Deck does. But for me, just having the option to tweak always makes me wonder if I could squeeze out something better. Maybe I have a problem. I have a problem. I have a problem. I need help. Help. Help me. Help me, please. Please. And that's what I like about the Switch. I already know the developers have squeezed every ounce of the Switch 2's power to make the game run perfectly on that hardware. There's nothing for me to tweak, it's just kind of ready. I boot it up, it works, and I'm playing within seconds. But this is definitely more of a personal preference thing. Some people like tweaking the days out of their games, and some people like it just having it optimized, like myself. I just like when games are done. No sliders, no toggles, no ultra versus high settings. It's just ready to go. And that's why I love consoles like Xbox, PlayStation, and the Switch. Every game just works. So yeah, this part's definitely subjective. I can see both sides, but I just want to play my game to the best of its abilities for that system. Now, what about the actual games, like the selection of games? I think the main difference is the Switch isn't really about third-party games. Like, you can play them. And if the Switch is your only console, it's a great option. But most people buy the Switch for its first-party games. The Marios, the Zeldas, the conky donks. So if you're into Nintendo exclusives and that cozy handheld vibe, obviously the Switch is going to be a better choice. But also there are just way more unique games on the PC. Now, one major benefit to the Xbox handheld is the docking. And yes, I know the Switch can dock as well, but this is a different style of docking because the whole experience changes when you dock the Xbox handheld. You can literally use this thing as a full-on gaming PC, which is epic. There's no dock included, but if you pick up a simple dongle or a docking station, this thing instantly turns up to a desktop PC. You can plug in a keyboard and mouse, download.
My thing with that though is that you're just kind of transferring it to the screen though. It's not empowering it to be better or anything. That's my problem with that. So
Chrome.
I'm not gonna pay $1,000 to put this thing on my PC when I can get me a better laptop. A better that defeats the purpose to me because I don't want to pay $1,000 for those specs. When most people at home, definitely in Western society, want to play on their laptop, their desktop, or their TV, I would rather invest in something else. But that's just me though. And I think that's the majority of the gaming community, like 90-something%. But it is cool that they allow you to do that though. There's nothing wrong with that.
Discord, whatever you want. I even attempted to edit a video on this. It's not exactly ideal for that, but hey, it's possible. Then when you're done, you can just undock it and jump right back into gaming. So overall, when it comes to gaming on this thing, it really depends on how you like to play. If you already have a big PC library, the Xbox handheld is probably a better fit. But if you prefer the simplicity of just sitting down, turning something on and playing instantly, the Switch 2 is a much better experience. You just won't get the same level of customization and flexibility. And as for battery life, both systems are surprisingly comparable. It really depends on what game you're playing, but on average, the Switch 2 gave me about 2.5 hours, and the ROG Ally for the games I was playing was a little bit less than that. I find that when they're both in sleep mode, the Switch 2 definitely lasts a little bit longer, but still, for the games I play,
how when you're paying that much more money? That's crazy.
At least they're pretty comparable. Now, I should mention that I've been using the Xbox ROG Ally X, but there's a cheaper version simply called the Xbox ROG Ally without the X. This one is white, has 16 gigabytes of RAM instead of the 24 on the X, and half the storage at 512 gigabytes compared to the Ally X's 1 terabyte. And by the way, the Switch only has 256 gigabytes, so that's something else that you could consider. But all of them support expanded storage with micro SD cards, so it's pretty flexible. From my experience with the white model, the non-X version, it still gives you slightly better.
The difference though is Nintendo games are like 5 gigs, 10 gigs. You can fit a ton of games on there. You put 3 games on this, it's done. Because their file decompression is stupid. And it makes you want to just purchase more storage. It's like the biggest game on Nintendo's were like 20-something gigs or whatever. So you can fit tons of games on there. I got a 256 at launch. So that 512 is kind of like 2 or 1.5 for those type of devices because of the file decompression. Laziness. It's ridiculous and bloated.
Performance overall than the Switch 2, but with a few drawbacks compared to the Ally X. Xbox and Asus, who make the ROG Ally, actually invited me out to test both systems, and with my limited brain capacity, I didn't notice a huge difference at first, if I'm being completely honest, but if I had them side by side long term, I'd probably notice the white one runs a touch slower. And to be honest, based on what I play and how I play, I probably would have got the regular Ally, not the X model, but the X model is nice. I'm just saying. They gave me the X model. I'm happy with it. I'm thankful. But we got to talk about the, the elephant in the room. And that's the price, which is honestly where things start getting a little wacky. Brace yourself. The Xbox ROG Ally X comes in at $999 US. And the base model is $799. These consoles are $1,000 and $800 respectively. What in the world? That's a lot of money for something positioned as a handheld console. Like, it's just insane. Now, I will say, the reason that they're pricing it so high is because Asus has to make money on the console. Because they don't get any money from the software sales, they have to make money on the hardware. Unlike the classic console way of having a little bit of a loss or very low profits on the console and then make the money back on software, the ROG Ally Asus doesn't have the same deal. So they kind of have to put the price up higher. So that makes sense. But when you start comparing it directly to a console like the Switch 2, which is $450 and $500 for a game bundle, it becomes a lot harder to justify. I could buy 2 Nintendo Switch 2s for the price of one of these handheld consoles. What in the world? I think the Xbox handheld is really expensive, especially when you look at the state of Xbox right now. Have you seen them? There's been talk about Xbox stepping back from the console market entirely, shifting focus more towards software, Game Pass, and partnerships, which makes sense when you realize this thing was built with Asus and not by Xbox alone. Obviously, if you were in the market for a new gaming PC or wanted a powerful portable rig, the price suddenly looks a lot more reasonable, but if you're viewing this as a handheld console, something you just pick up and play, it's kind of a tough sell, to be honest.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say this is necessarily for the people that want a handheld Xbox, because the software interface is so much more different and inherently complicated. Like, yes, it's the easiest out of all the handheld PCs aside from maybe the Steam Deck, but it is also the most versatile. So there are pros and cons. I do like it, but it's hard for me to recommend this console over a Nintendo Switch. For me personally, I don't think it's better than the Nintendo Switch 2. I like that snappy, console-ready feel, and of course, the Nintendo exclusives. But for any non-Nintendo game, especially ones that don't have a physical version, I think I'd absolutely play them on this. So yes, great hardware, great potential, but very high price for entry. So is the Xbox handheld PC console actually better than the Nintendo Switch 2? It's the closest any PC handheld has come to feeling like a console, and that's genuinely impressive, but it still can't match how instant and effortless the Switch 2 feels. If you want raw power and total flexibility, then yes, the Xbox handheld wins. But if you want that sit down and play console experience with games that just work, the Switch 2 is still better in my eyes. And thanks to Xbox and Asus for giving me this and inviting me out to the event. That was a lot of fun, and I appreciate it dearly. And yeah, this is for some people, just probably not for me, yet I know I'm going to use it all the time. So
Thanks, buddy. So there we go, guys. Let me know what you guys think about this. That's his point of view. Cool guy. There's some funny stuff here, and we kind of get the idea here. Yeah, it's kind of hard to sell that when it's that much more expensive, $550 more. You would think that, I would say, but no, people are not really justifying it. But that does not mean that you can't get one and you can't enjoy it. This is just his end, and this is another angle, as I tell you. So there we have it, guys. Like, comment, subscribe. There we go. Later.